Welcome to the latest episode of Harlem Stories. I'm Robert Lazo,
And I'm Adam Feinberg.
and in this episode, we're going to talk about new development in Upper Manhattan.
This is an awesome topic. There's so much going on. It's a great opportunity to buy right now. I think what we're seeing is a quite dramatic shift in the quality of the inventory going in Upper Manhattan right now.
And we're talking now March 2022.
Yeah, in March 2022, we have some really, really great new developments, on whether it's on parks or interior within the neighborhoods. But there's really something for everyone that is looking for a new development. And the quality and the features and the amenities. I think they widely vary, but I think there's some awesome opportunities right now.
Okay, and just a quick question. Why would someone consider new development versus maybe something that was recently built?
So, honestly, a lot of people are just looking for the kind of light, the amenities, the features. In one or two cases, there is still a brand new tax abatement, one of the last buildings to get that tax abatement. But there's a lot of times it's just the aspect of I'm buying new, nobody has lived here before kind of feel.
Got it. And then, of course, one of the things that a person that is looking at a new development should realize is that it takes time to move in.
It does. It does take quite a long time to, go from the sales cycle to actual closing. From the time that a new development is planned until it actually opens, that could easily be 4 to 6 years. So it is a long, long horizon.
Wait a minute. Did you just say 4 to 6 years you have to wait before you can move in?
No, but that is the time from the time that the project is conceived until it actually starts closing.
Okay, so then when they start putting stuff on sale and maybe you can walk by or drive by a building and see that, you can see it obviously come up, but you don't necessarily know if you can go in and see it yet. So from then, what's the process like, or the timing?
So the process at that point, and the timing could be different for every single building, but the process at that point is usually there'll be a sales office that opens, typically off-site initially, and as the building gets more completed, it will probably move to on-site, where one of the sales offices is actually one of the apartments that they use as kind of a sample, and they have it staged and all that.
And do you need a broker to go with you to see the sales office?
Well, that's kind of a sticky question over there. The reality is, no, you don't. However, you do want a broker over there if you are going to get serious. It does make a difference with new development, the way it's handled from a brokerage perspective. My recommendation is that you do get a broker, register you from the very beginning, and that way it keeps things nice and simple going forward. You always want somebody that's going to represent your best interest, and then you can negotiate on better terms.
Okay, great. And also, again, we were talking about the amount of time it may take from when you originally view the unit, from when you actually decide to make an offer to when actually the construction is finished. There's lots of things that happen in between. So is there a general time frame? Can I say that it would take, you could expect to wait perhaps even a year from when you actually submitted an offer before you moved in?
That's certainly a possibility, but with every new development, it's going to be in a different place and a different time. Some buildings might not start sales until they're just about ready or very close to ready to, open the doors and allow closings to begin. There's other buildings that might not start sales for years before they're ready. So the reality is it's going to be different for every building.
Okay, and then just to reiterate, it's a good idea to start working with a broker, especially if you're working with a broker already, to let them know that you're interested in new development so they can help you, guide you through the process, because it's very rare that you're going to find one particular building specifically that you're going to walk into and all of a sudden want to put in an offer. It's possible, but more likely, and what we're talking about are there are several options, and a broker who's familiar with the buildings in the neighborhood can help you.
Yeah, and especially if you're working with a particular broker and they start understanding what it is that you're looking for, they're going to probably be the one that are going to suggest a particular building or buildings for you specifically because it meets the kind of requirements that you're looking for. So, for instance, one of the advantages for some of the new development buildings is that you have an opportunity to purchase a parking space. And, that might not be something that's easy or routine to do on resale buildings, but in a lot of new developments, it might be possible, depending on the size of the building, of course.
Okay, good. So we'll be right back. When we come back, we're going to talk about some buildings in Upper Manhattan that Adam and I will suggest. Okay, we're back, and we are talking about new development in Upper Manhattan. Adam, do you want to talk about certain buildings you want to start with?
Yeah, so obviously there's been a whole rash of new developments in the last 5-10 years or so. I think we're going to focus mostly on the newest buildings that have been built in the last 2 to 3 years or so. So if we look at the south portion of the neighborhood, there's 10 Lenox, there's 145 Central Park North. Those are among the newest of the new developments that are just pretty much right on Central Park North or within a block of Central Park North. So 145 Central Park North is a pretty cool building because every apartment in the building faces Central Park. So they all have Central Park views. Now, if obviously you're on the second floor, you're going to get more of a tree line view. But as you go up, it doesn't necessarily need to be a tall building. As is true for the majority of buildings in Upper Manhattan, most of them are going to be under 15 stories or less. So that tends to be the norm, and that certainly holds true for 145 Central Park North. Great building. You can purchase a parking space there, since we mentioned parking earlier. They have some really interesting opportunities. Huge windows, obviously taking advantage of that skyline. If you were on 57th Street and looking in the opposite direction, looking north, toward Harlem, you're going to pay many, many, many millions more for a very similar kind of apartment, especially if you're clearing that tree line view on the 8th or 9th floor or so. Once you start getting above that point, it's just open views. So it's very similar kind of opportunity.
That's a great observation, actually, because, on Billionaires Row, everybody's looking north, and Central Park is kind of like your backyard, so to speak, right? But if you're up in Central Park North and you're looking south, you get an incredible, panoramic views of the skyline. Plus, you have your, quote, backyard or your front yard, which is Central Park.
So we just saved you millions. Thank you.
All right, there you go. All right.
So, this is among the great opportunities that we talk about when we have value, and we talk about value. Now, there's other options out there that, for instance, 10 Lenox, more of a boutique building also. These tend to be mostly smaller buildings, and I think that's worth mentioning as well. In Harlem, in Hamilton Heights, and in Morningside Heights, all these places where you're now starting to see new developments, the vast majority of the new buildings tend to be under 75 units or less. 300 West, which we'll talk about a little bit more later on, that is a much larger building, but that's more the exception than the rule.
I just wanted to ask a quick question about 10 Lenox. Is that one primarily the facade? Is that glass and steel?
No, that one is it's a little bit more brickwork.
Okay.
But quite honestly, it's on 111th and Lenox,
Okay.
so it's not actually on Central Park. Some of the apartments do have direct views because you're only about a block north of the park. So some of the apartments do have direct views. When you go up to the roof deck on 10 Lenox, you definitely have views of Central Park unobstructed.
Interesting. Okay, so what's the one that I got confused with? Because there's one that's right on the park, Lenox, and it has glass.
So you're talking about 111 Central Park North. It is a little bit of an older building that was built, I don't know, I want to say somewhere around 2004 to 2006 era.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. Actually, quite a number of celebrities actually own apartments there, and whether they're living there or not might be a different story. But that is more that glass and steel, and that there is private parking available in that building too.
Okay, so let's stick to the newer buildings. All right, great.
So we mentioned that. There's also another new boutique building I have not yet gone into yet between Lenox and Adam Clayton on 112th, and I forgot the exact address. I haven't been in that yet, but I think that's only about 15, 20 apartments or so. That is a little bit more of that glass kind of facade that you're looking for. That one literally sales just started in the last few weeks.
Right.
So I have not yet myself seen that. If you go a little, continue to go northward just a little bit, right off Frederick Douglass Boulevard and 113th Street, you have, I think it's 310 West 113th Street. Again, another boutique building. I think that's like 13, 14 apartments, something like that. It's meant to have this very distinct, like kind of almost a pre-war type of look to it. Again, smaller building. Most of the apartments there tend to be 2 or 3 bedrooms, but they are large. They have nice high ceilings. Overall, you're right, kind of almost sandwiched between Morningside Park and Central Park. So great option, for somebody that is looking for a smaller building. As we go a little bit further north, we start getting into kind of more of a cluster site of new developments. You have 300 West 122nd Street, aka 300 West. You have 99 Morningside. You have 11 Hancock. So those are all clustered within a handful of blocks of each other. You do have some other condo resales not too far from there as well that were built earlier in the last decade or so, decade and a half. But those 3 new buildings, each one is distinctive and different. 300 West is going to be probably one of the overall great values that we come across, where you had 2-bed, 2-bath starting in the 1.2, 1.3 range and going up from there into the $2 million for a 2-bed, 2-bath, higher floors.
How many stories?
That one I think is 15 stories, if I remember correctly. I could be mistaken on that. I'm doing all this by memory, but I think most important with 300 West is you're getting very high end finishes. You're getting a beautiful building. It's got entrances on both 121 and 122, doorman building, and you have the opportunity to buy your own parking space there. But they have amenities galore, including a swimming pool, the sauna, jacuzzi. And all sorts of amenities and outdoor space as well. So, I think overall that's one of the better values overall. If you're looking for higher end luxury without necessarily the bigger price tag, it does achieve that. And that's possible because, Harlem, the land prices were cheaper, so it was an opportunity to get in a little cheaper. If you go just a couple blocks to the north and a little bit to the west, you have 99 Morningside, which is more that glass, facade type of building, mostly glass. And that one is you actually have Parkside Apartments with Morningside Park views. And I think there's some great opportunities. Again, another boutique building. I think it's around 23, 24 apartments or so. Not huge on the amenities, but, for somebody that wants that, all, huge, massive glass windows, and be on a park, I think this is a really great option. Some good values there. Some of the apartments have outdoor spaces too, private, so aside from being across the street from a park, you have your own, many of the apartments do have their own outdoor space. Then we get to 11 Hancock, which is kind of like this hybrid. I want to say it's 60, 70 apartments, somewhere in that rough neighborhood. It does not have the huge amenities of 300 West. But again, you're also still getting that higher end kind of finishes without, all the amenities. So it is a little bit cheaper. You can get kind of an apartment with an outdoor space, cheaper than you would with 300 West. It's also straddling with between Hancock and 125th. So some of the apartments are going to be a little bit more affordable because they are on that main thoroughfare.
But the advantage over there is you're really close to the subway.
Yeah, you're incredibly close to the subway and the crosstown bus. So you want to catch that plane from coming out of LaGuardia. The M60 is practically right outside your door. So express bus to the plane.
How long does that take?
Well, that's a trick question. You never know with it, but
Let's say early morning.
Yeah, I honestly don't
We
know.
don't know. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll test that. That'll be a
Yeah.
future episode. But hey, I didn't know that you can take the M60 right to LaGuardia from 125th Street.
Yeah, from 125th, it goes all the way across town, goes across the Triborough Bridge, and then it's almost like from there it's like 20-30 minutes.
So my understanding is I apologize for going just a tiny bit off topic, but my understanding is they've recently renovated LaGuardia Airport. So
Which is exactly why I don't want to comment, because I don't know what the construction patterns are these days.
Okay, so we'll check this out. This will be a future episode.
Yeah.
All right, let's continue with 11 Hancock.
So yeah, 11 Hancock, it's beautiful finishes. It is high end. Definitely competes with 300 West in terms of the apartments themselves. But it doesn't have the crazy amenity packages. You can't buy a parking space, things like that. So it is a little bit more of a value play from that aspect. It is also one of the rare cantilevered buildings that you see uptown. I only know of one other, which was a 2006 or 10 era building as well. So somewhere around that era. Cantilever buildings are not very common uptown, but that gives you that option. So then, if we want to kind of round out the sub 125th Street kind of new constructions, there are two other new buildings, and we're going to move further the neighborhood to the west, and we're going to talk about Morningside Heights. And in Morningside Heights, you have one building that is already live, and you can actually buy an apartment and close on it pretty immediate because the entire building is raring to go, which is Vanderwater. And it is at a peak, and you're in Morningside Heights, and it's named so because you're at you're in the higher points of Manhattan. So not only are you at one of the higher points in Manhattan, but on top of that is that the building is 30-something stories, and and the views are pretty much open around all the way around. So that's what kind of makes Upper Manhattan so different. You're not basically crowned in by like all these other massively tall buildings. These very tall buildings are kind of rare in Upper Manhattan. Like I said, the vast majority are going to be 15 stories or less. So that's what makes Vanderwater, an interesting prospect. On top of the fact that it's only a handful of blocks north of Columbia's main campus and kind of sandwiched between their new campus expansion, which is only a few blocks north of where they're located.
Okay, so what does the view from Vanderwater look like facing south?
Facing south, you have basically the entire city skyline. Once you're, I think, above, the 17th floor, which if you were in neighborhoods south of 96th Street, 17 floors is not that high up, but up here, that's kind of rare. So once you're on 18 or above, you have pretty open views.
And of course, you see everything, including Central Park.
Including Central Park, you start seeing the Hudson River, depending on the angle of, the location of the apartment. But yeah, everything is pretty much wide open.
Great. Okay. So, are we still at Vanderwater, or are we going to go somewhere else?
You know what? Vanderwater, still has, it's like the highest end finishes. It does have, of course, the swimming pool. You can buy a parking space. There's a whole grouping of, these amenities throughout the building. Overall, it's my favorite building to date that I've actually been in and walked through.
Okay. So tell me more about the swimming pool.
So it wasn't yet opened. It was still under construction, so I haven't been able to actually see like it filled up and completed. But I saw the in the ground hole where they were finishing, putting the finishes on it. So really can't talk too much about that at this stage.
Okay, so I think we need to pay a visit over there just to check it out.
Yeah, and then of course, just like about a block away or so, on Claremont, we're going to move on over to the last building of the group. We actually just internally at our firm in Elgran, we got a virtual tour of a new building that will probably start sales in the next couple of weeks or so, or next few weeks or so. But definitely, we got our first glimpse at Claremont Hall. And Claremont Hall is important because it's the first Robert A.M. Stern building this far north. It is definitely a world-class building. I think it's going to give Vanderwater buyers a run for their money. So really, those two buildings are going to compete kind of head-to-head in terms of like their features, their views, the finishes. Absolutely beautiful in both buildings. Obviously, because right now we're seeing more of renderings because literally they're putting the finishing touches on the exterior facade as we speak right now as we're recording this, and they haven't even started building out the interiors yet. So right now what we're looking at is renderings, but Robert A.M. Stern has a long track record of doing absolutely beautiful finishes, high end to the highest degree, and there's an expectation with his buildings.
Okay, and of course, you're going to get a tremendous value, or at least people are anticipating that tremendous value, because this is the same, especially if you were looking for Robert A.M. Stern specifically as your architect, because he is behind such buildings as 220 Central Park South and 200 East 83rd Street, and these are amazing buildings.
And 15 Central Park West. Yeah.
Okay, so take a look at those if you're kind of curious, and of course take a look at Claremont Hall, which is 100 Claremont Avenue.
Yeah, obviously the sales office hasn't yet opened, but it will be opening within the next few weeks. You can certainly give Robert and I a call if you're interested in learning more about Claremont Hall or any of these buildings or any building in Manhattan in particular.
Great. And maybe we should tell a little bit about kind of what the idea behind Claremont Hall is, because we learned this today. And essentially, it is in the middle of Columbia's sort of territory or campus, if you want to say that.
Well, I think that's a whole long story. I think that could be a whole episode on its own, but it is part of the Union Theological Seminary. But honestly, I think that could be a whole episode on its own.
Okay, good. So we're going to leave it at that. But I do want to mention it's got an incredible swimming pool. So stay tuned for the future episode, and we'll talk more about the pool.
Thanks a lot.
All right. We'll see you next time on Harlem Stories.